Well, hello and welcome to another LinkedIn Live Q&A where I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Thomas, who is the Director and Accountant for Abacus Jack, which is an accountancy firm based in Washington, in between Newcastle and Sunderland in Tyne and Wear. And today we're going to talk about the importance of knowing your numbers. So how are you doing, Andy, today?
Hi, Paul. Hi, I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. This is a great experience for me, so I'm excited to see what you've got in store for the next hour.
Well, yeah, we've been doing a lot of these videos and they get good response, but I know you've been doing a lot of really good videos for the Startup Week community as well. So really useful tips and advice already on the YouTube channel that people can check out. And but today we're gonna talk about a range of different topics related to small business accountancy, getting on top of your finances, your funding and finance, and how to basically manage your business better and more effectively. Because I would say, sweeping statement, but I would say most small business owners that I know, most startups, freelancers, micro business owners, it's probably the least favorite part of running the business is the finances. That maybe love doing what they do and cracking on and making things or producing things or doing the work, but actually the finances and accountancy is not something that many people enjoy doing. Is that what you tend to find as well?
Yeah, absolutely right, Paul. Yeah, I mean, most people go into business because they've got a real passion for something, or they know that they're really good at something, and they want to turn that into a sort of into a business or sort of commercial venture. So they're out there, they're busy, they're doing stuff, they're selling stuff, or they're making stuff. People don't go into business because they like looking at the spreadsheets at the end of the day, or they like compiling the reports. So the numbers often get kind of overlooked, and it's not uncommon people get to the end of the year or get to the end of the quarter, a little bit of panic about what needs to be submitted, etc. So that's where small business accountants can really add value. Those accountancy firms out there that work with small businesses can take away that pain. I often say to people, effectively we provide pain relief. So we take away the burden and the stress of tax and compliance, and we manage that for you. Kind of lets you get on with what you're good at and what you enjoy, which, as you say, is often and usually not the numbers.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's that peace of mind. That's the thing. Like, yes, people can do it themselves. A lot of people do like to do everything on their own, and I definitely like to understand at least some level of accounts, but I know that I'm not an expert in it. That's why I outsource that part. I don't have someone in-house in the team that's looking after my accounts and my payroll. I outsource it to an accountancy firm because I know that's what they do day in, day out. That's what they're really good at, and they're keeping an eye on everything and just making sure, like you say, it's compliance and that peace of mind. And if there's anything that I need to know about, they're flagging that up in advance. I don't get any nasty surprises or anything like that. And I think I've told you before, my dad is an accountant. He's a tax specialist accountant, and he's had lots of stories over the years where some of their clients, they never see them all yet, and then they just turn up with a bag of receipts at the end of the year, and they just have to try and make sense of it all. So I know there's still a bit of that goes on, but those days are gone, or they're going, aren't they? And the role of an accountant completely changed.
I mean, it does still go on. I mean, hopefully I can talk to you a little bit about some ways where you can avoid that happening. Talk to you about sort of some of the newer systems and processes that are really readily available out there to help small businesses move away from the kind of paper trail. But yeah, I mean, the compliance element of accountancy is obviously important, because if you don't meet those compliance obligations, you're going to get letters from HMRC or whatever, and nobody likes that. We don't want those coming through. So that's one aspect. But the other kind of really interesting thing for small businesses is that if you are kind of on top of those numbers and you're on top of the finances, you can really use that information to make some decisions about the future of the business. So you can make decisions about when perhaps to hire people, or when cash might be becoming an issue. And the sooner you can identify that, the sooner you can do something about it, And again, we can talk about that a little bit as we go on. But yeah, the numbers tell a story, and it's about getting on top of that and understanding how it can benefit you.
Yeah, so it is the role of an accountant. It's more an advisory or like all year rounds, and definitely with the rise of subscription software as a service, the products, really great accountancy products and financial products that are out there that help you keep on top of things all year round. And not just the business owner, but the accountant can simultaneously be logged in and keeping an eye on things. That's been revolutionary for how to run your business. So talk a bit about that. So you focus, well, you can work with any accountancy software, can't you? But you are the Northeast only gold level partner for free agent software. So do you want to talk a bit about why you like free agent so much and what's so special about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we're the only kind of small independent practice that has the free agent gold accreditation. Now, basically, the reason why we work with free agent a lot is they're a UK-based company. So they're based up in Edinburgh, and they have a really kind of unique blend of, first and foremost, they're driven by being technologists. So the technology that they're working on, that they're developing, is really using the kind of latest cloud-based technology for data storage and access. So the software is super simple, super secure. But secondly, they're very much on top of UK legislation and UK obligations, because that's what the company is. It's a UK company. So the software is designed for UK small businesses, and therefore the terminology, the language that's used in the software is very easy to understand. Some of the other accountancy products, I mean, they are very good, but they are the global products. So Xero, for example, is a New Zealand company. It's got a vast global audience. So therefore, it has to be much more generic in terms of the language it uses, and the way it kind of is geared towards the tax rules of different countries. So that can cause confusion for small businesses in the UK or other countries, because they're working on a global platform. It's free agent, very, very simple to use and really, really perfect for UK small businesses. And I think it's also worth mentioning that the support that sits behind that product, I'm always impressed by how good that is. So, whether you phone them or you email them, they actually usually get back to you within a matter of hours, which is staggeringly good. There's no kind of we'll attempt to respond in 48 hours type thing. It's you get an email back within a couple of hours and it answers your question, and that is really brilliant to have that.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's a really good point. That it's a UK-based company, that is their knowledge of the local audience, the local legislation is that. Yeah. Compared to others is arguably better. The other thing I think as well is some of the other products are maybe developed for accountants, and now small business owners are using it, but some of them are maybe they've got all the bells and whistles. They've got everything an accountant could possibly need, because over many years they've added more features, but they're maybe too complicated for the average small business owner. Whereas free agent is definitely one thing I really like about it is you can tell it's designed for freelancers, one person company, micro business owners, small business owners. They really understand it's designed for them, not for accountants, although accountants can obviously use it really well, and it's a great product for accountants to use. But the primary audience is how to make things really simple and easy for the small business owner, and that's definitely comes across in not just the product, but all the communications and all the advice and resources that they have on their website and on their blog and on the email newsletters as well.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's I was saying before about the kind of technology element of it. With it being purely cloud-based, as your accountant, we see what you see. So there's no concept of you having to send us reports or send us spreadsheets. We can see exactly the same data that you see as the business owner. So that just makes working with clients really easy, especially in this world where stuff is done remotely, because we can have a kind of call, video call or a telephone call, and just be chatting through the same screens. We're seeing the same thing. And with that technology, you don't need to download anything. You don't need to save anything. That is the way things tend to be going now. If you compare that to some of the older products, some of the older kind of Sage products or something that were out there, your accountants had to have their own servers sat in the office running these products. Updates would come through on a CD and kind of get installed, and they might go wrong and have to roll back. And you'd find that these servers were actually just an old computer that was left on overnight. There was no real kind of thought going into that. And that's, I talk about that happening in the past, but actually that still goes on in some practices, and they're still very reliant on that kind of old-fashioned on-premise type technology. It's expensive, it's unreliable. I personally think that the world is now moving towards more sort of cloud-based technology, and it's easier, simpler, and usually safer to use.
Yeah. You just gave me shivers there. Like I've had a flashback when you said the word rollback, because I used to work in tech support. And I remember when you get to the payroll year end and someone would ring up and you'd have to tell them that unfortunately they'd been using the wrong tax code all year long, and they had to roll everything back and redo the payroll for the full 12 months. so yeah, or they would install an update and there would be 10 floppy disks, and they would get the disk number 8 and it would crash or something like that, and they would lose it. Oh god! Right, but yeah, so don't have it. So that's another bit. Obviously, benefit of the cloud-based technology. It's always up to date. There's never any risk of anything you using the old version of the software. As long as you keep paying your monthly subscription, you've always got the latest product.
Right. Yeah.
Instantly updated. Often on every 2 weeks there's new features, or at least every month there's new tweaks being made. Yeah. But you as an accountant as well, and a lot of accountants have moved more towards the subscription model as well, where instead of just paying an annual fee or per service, it's you have a range of packages, don't you, where people can pay on a monthly basis depending on what size we're at. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the subscription model is good for clients, and it's good for us as a business as well, because what it does is we think that you get the best service by working with us throughout the year, because no matter what size of business, everyone's got different requirements. You might have monthly payroll, quarterly VAT. So it's not just a case of kind of annual accounts or annual tax returns. There's lots of things going on throughout the year, and that's the compliance side. There's also the need to kind of check in with your accountant and ask questions, ask their opinion on certain scenarios, and by working with clients throughout the year, we're always on hand to have those conversations. So we're very accessible. You can book appointments online. Our diaries are all visible to clients online. So you find a slot that works for you. You book that time, and we have a chat. There's no kind of having to wait for the end of the year or that kind of concept. And of course, the obvious thing is it spreads the cost of accountancy out over the year. Accountancy is often one of the biggest costs for small businesses. So if they get one bill a year, that's a real impact onto their cash flow. And we talk about the importance of cash flow in a minute, but by spreading that cost monthly, it just happens. It just comes out, and it lessens the impact. So yeah, we do find it's a good model. We have kind of a tiered structure. So depending on the type of business you are, we kind of offer I suppose the easiest way to think about it is like a sort of bronze, silver, gold type approach, where the more support you need from us, the more we can provide. So you might sort of go from like a bronze package to a silver package, and that will include more hands-on reports or more hands-on bookkeeping that we can do for you. But every business is different, so if you come to us and you don't really fit into that tiered approach, then we'll put together a kind of a different service for you, something that works. The client's requirements are always what drives the service.
Yeah. So it's worth saying. So if people go on the website, so it's abacusjack.co.uk. On your homepage, you've got your range of packages on there. So you've got a package for self-employed and partnership accountancy services from £55 plus VAT per month. You've got a limited company accountancy service from £95 plus VAT per month. And you've got some other one-off accountancy services just on an ad hoc basis. So people can maybe add them on top of the other packages, or even just as a standalone. Is that what they can do?
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, it's really flexible in terms of how you want to work. So, for example, the limited company package there at £95 plus VAT, that covers everything you need from a compliance and tax point of view throughout the year. So, we provide you with the software, in this case, it's free agent. So you get a free agent license provided. All of your end of year accounts are done. Your business tax return is done. Your corporation tax return. But as a director, your personal tax return is also taken care of. So we do all of the all aspects that you would need throughout the year, all the company's house filings. So it's ideal for kind of new limited companies just starting out, because certainly your first couple of years as a director, you've got all these things going on. You're not quite sure when stuff has to be submitted, who it is submitted to, how to do it. So let your accountant take care of that. It removes that burden. Like I said at the start, it takes that pain away. That monthly fee comes out your account by direct debit each month. And it just sort of takes care of that element of your finances for you.
Yeah, great. And you mentioned it there. We'll talk about it now, about cash flow. So the importance of cash flow. People talk about cash flow all the time, and cash is king, but I don't think they necessarily understand what people mean by that. So why is it important to understand cash flow and keep on top of that?
Well, cash flow is absolutely fundamental to monitor as you run a business. One of the first things to kind of go through is that a lot of businesses earn their income via invoicing. So certainly sort of service-based businesses will do a piece of work, often based on kind of time, and they'll send a client an invoice. But the standard approach is that invoice doesn't have to be paid immediately. So, for example, standard terms will be 30 days. So a business does some work, they invoice their client, they might not see that money in their bank account for 30 days. Mm-hmm. So where a lot of people kind of get confused is they might have a really good month or have a fantastic month, okay, and it gets to the end of the month and they've sent, let's say, £5,000 worth of invoices out to their client and think, oh, this is brilliant, we're doing really well. So the next month, they want to start kind of, promoting the business, do some advertising, some recruitment, for example, all those kind of things that go on in a business. But where's the money? The money isn't there. The money's still in a pending state, in a holding state, because your client doesn't have to pay you for 30 days. Okay, now you might have agreed some different terms. That's great. Some people can agree sort of 7 days or 14 days, but even so, you're waiting for that money. So the cash is exactly as it sounds. It's money that is available for you to spend right now on what your business needs to do, and that is not the same as the revenue that you've billed or you've booked. There is a difference. So in simple terms, the business is always playing catch up. It's always got a list of IOUs from its clients. It's always waiting for money to come in, and unless you kind of start to understand that concept, you can get caught out, because you've also got to pay your suppliers. So you might be buying a new computer, or you're buying some office furniture, whatever it might be. Often, purchases have to be paid for there and then. So if you go to, I don't know, John Lewis and buy a laptop, you can't turn around to John Lewis and say, is it okay if I give you the money in 30 days, but get the laptop now? Most small businesses don't have that sort of line of credit, so they have to pay there and then. So unless you're kind of keeping an eye on what's happening with cash, you can get caught out quite quickly. So that's the one aspect of it. It's kind of acknowledging that there is this trail of IOUs that are always playing catch up. The other element of cash flow is to look ahead. So over the next sort of 3 months or 6 months, sit down and have a think. what's likely to be coming in each month. What work have you got booked and guaranteed? What work have you got kind of simmering away in the pipeline? And write that down somewhere, even if it's just on a spreadsheet. Put it down and just look at what that's telling you. And then likewise, look at your costs. So each month you'll know certain costs that you've got to pay out. For example, accountancy fees or rent or I don't know, electricity bills, something like that. You know that they're coming up, so write them down, put them in a spreadsheet, or we can talk about other tools that help with cash flow. But what you're doing is you're starting to build up a picture of what's happening in the business, and that is vital because that's going to tell you, firstly, if there's any warning signs. So if you are going to run out of money, you need to know about that now rather than when it happens, because you can do things, you can put things in place to help you. And there's various kind of things that can help with cash flow. There's commercial products from banks, like sort of invoice financing or invoice factoring. But equally, it might just be a case of, as a director, you just need to put some money in the business for a few months just to get through a certain cash flow hurdle. But unless you know about that, it's going to come as a surprise. So keep looking ahead and just keep keep reviewing what is going in and what is coming out of the business. And then once you've got that concept, you can then start kind of looking at different scenarios. So what happens if your key client decides to move on or decides to move somewhere else? You're going to lose that revenue. Have you planned for that? What's going to happen if that occurs? Likewise, it might be a positive impact. So you might get a really big client in the next couple of months. What's that going to do? It's going to be great for revenue, but how are you going to service that client? Are you going to need to recruit somebody? You're going to need to expand the team. All these things, all these scenarios can have a real impact on the business finances. And unless you're keeping one eye ahead, it can be quite stressful, basically. So the concept of managing cash flow is all about just taking time each week to stop what you're doing and just focus on what may lie ahead. And even if it's just in your mind, just get on top of the numbers in terms of what business might be facing in the next few months. And as the business matures, or for example, if you are working with an accountant that supports this kind of thing, then they too can help you stay on top of that by providing kind of reports and tools and talking you through those and maybe pointing out a few things that are slightly less obvious.
Yeah, no, that you've explained that really, really clearly there, because I think the phrase "your cash is king." It doesn't matter how big or small a company is. If your cash flow, if you're having problems with your cash flow, even the biggest of companies can go under. And like years ago, I worked for British Airways, and it was when was this? I get my dates wrong, but they had 12 months where they just lurched from one disaster to another, right?
Yeah.
But it was so things like what did they do? So I don't even remember. They changed the tail fins to be flags from around the world, and people hated it because they liked the Union Jack. So that had the cost of painting it and repainting it. So that was a lot of money. They relaunched Concorde, which sadly crashed. So obviously the cost of relaunching Concorde and then having to scrap it, disaster. And then what else? They bought a whole new fleet of aircraft at great expense. And then they decided they used to have a low-cost airline called Go, which was like...
I remember that, yeah.
Before EasyJet, right? And they decided that there was no future in low-cost airline. They were just going to focus on premium travel and business travel and scrap low-cost airlines. So they scrapped Go. And all these things going, and then 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And it was obviously tragic for anyone involved in that. But the impact on the airline industry and all this other stuff beforehand, they're just like, it was desperate times for them. They nearly went under. And I remember. Yeah. And like every day, it was like cash is king. And the biggest cost to the company was staff. So they just had to make a load of staff redundant.
Yeah,
including me, because I was one of the last one in, first one out sort of thing, But that was a real eye opener to me, that even the massive company like that can no fault of their own, although you could argue maybe they tried to do too much too soon, you know.
Yeah.
But how very quickly things can unravel.
Right. I mean, the other thing I didn't mention, but I mean, if you stay on top of things like cash flow forecasts, it can also make your business much more attractive to an outsider. So if you are at that point where you're looking to scale up or you're looking to bring in some investment, if you can't show them what you think is going to happen in the future, how are they going to buy in? You know, how are they going to buy into the story? So if you are at the point where you're scaling up or you're ready to kind of shake up an industry by getting that little bit bigger and you want some investment, then you need to be able to go to those investors with, you know, a confident set of management accounts and forecasts and say, you know, we're taking this seriously. This is what's going to happen in our business. We've thought about it. We've written it down. And that is really important if you're looking to bring in kind of external help.
Yeah. So how would it, in free agent, what's the best way to do that then? Like, do they have, what's the best report to look at or screen to look at in free agent to help you keep on top of that on a weekly or even daily basis?
I mean, free agent, I have to say, free agent's great at the day-to-day running of a business. So it's great at connecting into the bank account, getting all the transactions and helping you kind of code those and understand those. It's really good at all that. It's really good at processing invoices and payments. But actually, where it sometimes struggles is with looking ahead, is with the future forecasting.
Okay.
Now, there is a forecasting feature, so it does do it. But my opinion is it's quite basic. What I would suggest people do is, well, firstly, you know, if you're working with an accountant, just ask them the question. Just say, I need to produce a forecast. What do I do? Or how can you help me? And they will respond and they will get back and help you with that. If it were me, there's a couple of tools I use, or we use as a practice, that really help clients a lot. The first one's called Float, floatapp.com, I think it is. Again, a UK company, a UK tech company, who have built a very simple product that basically hooks into all these accountancy packages like Xero and Free Agent. It takes out the data automatically. So it knows all about the history, knows all your historical data. And then what it allows you to do is kind of very simply just literally play about with the numbers. So you can go in and look 3 months ahead or 6 months ahead, and you can just put in what you think might happen, and it updates automatically. So it updates all the underlying kind of ledgers, if you like, to give you a view of what your cash movement's going to be. So are you going to be spending more than you're getting, or are you going to be increasing cash? You know, that's what it comes down to. And that's a very simple, very graphical tool to do. And we can provide Float to clients if they're interested. It's anyone can go and buy it. You can buy the software, but usually if you get it through your accountant, you can usually get it cheaper. So that's a really good tool. The other one the other sort of tool that we use is something called Fathom. Fathom is a financial analytics tool. It's very, very powerful, and forecasting is one element. And where it's slightly different is it actually uses a lot of sort of algorithms. So, for example, it'll look at your historic data, and let's say you've got a seasonal business. So the majority of your business is done over the summer months. Then it'll take that into account, and it will build out different forecasts based on these algorithms. And you can tweak those as you want. So you can say, for example, last year's going to be a really good indication of this year, or actually no, this year's going to be double last year. And you can kind of put these rules in, if you like, and it just builds out the picture for you. So those tools are really good. But to be quite honest with you, often for small businesses, it's actually fine to just use a spreadsheet for this kind of stuff. Spreadsheets make the world go round. Every organization has hundreds of spreadsheets that it relies on, it uses. Sometimes they can be frustrating and they're a little bit prone to error, but let's be realistic. They can also be a really useful tool. So don't feel you have to have a bit of software for every single thing that you do. Sometimes it's okay to just have a spreadsheet and keep it there on your computer and go into it every so often and check the numbers. There's nothing wrong with that. And they, in sort of 80% of the cases, spreadsheets are a really good way of just managing your cash flow going forward.
Yeah, that's excellent. I didn't know. I knew a little bit about Float, but I didn't know anything about Fathom. So that's a new one on me. But it sounds like something really, really valuable. And then, so would you say when someone's been running their business a little while, is it easier to plan ahead because you've got some historical data and you can maybe spot some trends based on past performance? So is that easier than a brand new business where you're still figuring it out, or
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, the more historic data you've got, then you can use that to kind of give you averages and look at past performance. So that's great. But as I always say to people, that's history. That's been and gone. So a lot of accountants will do your end of year accounts for you and they'll present those to you. But that's a black and white document. It's a statutory document. It's quite dull, to be honest with you. There's not, it's not the most interesting thing to read. So really, all that history is you've got to produce it. You've got to submit it from a compliance point of view. But the interesting work is in looking ahead. And so it doesn't really matter whether you're brand new or whether you're an established business. What is interesting is looking at how the future of that business is going to perform based on the director's aspirations and scenarios, the markets. COVID comes along, all these factors come to play and will affect business revenue. And it's those businesses that can react to that and change and kind of reprioritize services or promote different services. Those are the ones that are going to be at the forefront of being able to make the change and adapt, rather than those kind of sitting on historical information, not really knowing where it's going.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it there, so I might as well bring it up. COVID, obviously, it's been a year since lockdown. Crazy to think about it, really. But then, so obviously, that nobody could plan for that. No one expected that. Well, some people might, but I don't think really anybody planned that. That's had obviously a massive impact on companies, and I think it's brought to light how many companies they maybe only have 2 months cash reserves, or I think a lot of people maybe know that a lot of people, people or families, maybe only have a month or 2 months salary ahead. They're living month by month, they're relying on that salary, so, and they're vulnerable. But a company as well, again, even the biggest companies, they don't have huge cash reserves. So something like COVID comes along, that can have a devastating impact. So the role of an accountant, a role of yourself, has become even more important, I think, than ever before. Because you're providing that, helping people get on top of the numbers and understanding exactly the situation that they're in right now, getting everything, all the compliance, making sure that they're making the most of the government support that's available, and also making sure that they're aware of everything that's coming further down the line as well. So, I mean, this anyway, because we've talked about, but like that's been a huge pressure, well, a huge relief for businesses, but a huge pressure on accountants as well. So that's challenging.
Yeah, the last year has been very challenging for anybody. I think, regardless of your line of work, we've all faced a lot of personal and professional challenges. So yeah, it has been difficult, but certainly from a point of view of managing small businesses and helping small businesses, I don't think our phones have ever been busier. I mean, literally, if I look back to a year ago, we almost became sort of counselors. Really, it was like just counseling people into how what was going on. People just needed that kind of voice of support. It wasn't that we had access to any more news than anyone else. We watched the same news channels and we had the same information. But I think sometimes it's just a case of hearing it from somebody else or talking through different things. And we saw almost on a day-by-day basis the support packages changing, the eligibility changing. And going back to the point on cash, I mean, what the government did was basically just try and get cash into businesses as quickly as possible. Now, unfortunately, there's always going to be winners and losers in that situation. And some businesses probably felt they should have got support where they hadn't. Others probably got stuff they weren't expecting, to be honest. So that's a hard nut to crack in terms of who you distribute the money to. But that's what they did. They tried to get cash into businesses very, very quickly, with the furlough scheme, with the COVID grants, and then a little bit later on with the kind of the loan schemes, the bounce back loans. They're all designed to input that much needed cash just to let people carry on operating, even if they're not getting any revenue. They just they can operate the business. So we found that we counselled a lot of people through that. We're quite lucky in the sense that as a business, so myself and my two colleagues, we've always worked remotely. We've always worked in a quite digital manner. So the physical kind of constraints on not being in the office and having to sort of communicate with each other and with clients remotely, that was something we adapted to quite quickly. But what I personally found difficult was, just there weren't enough hours in the day, because suddenly you have to factor in looking after kids and doing the homeschooling, that kind of stuff. So whereas a working day may have been 7-8 hours, it was now you're lucky if you get 2 or 3 hours sometimes to focus on work. So for me, the challenge was just having to do more with much less.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, so it's something that a lot of people that'll resonate with a lot of people who are watching this. But in case anyone's not said it, I'm going to say well done and thank you for what you've done for the last 12 months, because I know that you have been a massive support to your clients, and despite how tough it's been for you and for them, you've done a great job. And we've said before we came live how spring's here and the weather's better, and really optimistic and happy, and looking forward to the weeks and months ahead. So I think we should have a big party for accountants. I think obviously.
Yeah, it might not be the most wild party of all time.
I don't know. Accountants like a good drink, like a good party from what accountants I know, like a good party. But obviously, NHS really massive, grateful for everything anyone does in the NHS. But I also do think accountants are maybe unsung heroes for the British economy and businesses. So maybe if I could do it, I would do it. But if anyone else watching this wants to do it, let's have a big party, a big garden party or something for accountants.
A wild all-night party for accountants.
Yeah. So yeah, well, we'll talk a bit about a lot of accountants. Is that one of the things that I think you're really good at as well is a lot of accountancy firms, they're run by accountants who only know accountancy. That's all. But you've had a much more interesting background as well, and which I think gives you a more rounded understanding and experience of different types of businesses and different size organizations. So you've worked for some really big companies. You work for Citigroup, you've worked for Barclays, you've worked for Sage, you've worked for Atom Bank, and some smaller, exciting fintech type companies or tech startups. Before starting your own company, Abacus Jack in 2016. But at the very beginning, you were in the Royal Navy as well. So you want to explain how did that all? How did you get to there, when to now?
So I've had a reasonably varied background. When I was at university, I did marine biology at university, just purely because I was interested in that kind of thing. I was kind of into my diving and conservation and things like that. So the degree was really interesting. But the other thing I did at university was I got involved in the officer cadets, sort of Navy officer cadets scheme. And that was really good. It was a lot of fun, big kind of social scene. And we used to get to go away with the Navy and do kind of cool things, do exercises. And I just really love that kind of stuff. I'm quite an outdoorsy person, quite kind of practical. So that really sparked an interest in the forces. And when I got to the end of my degree, to be honest, I didn't really fancy going into sort of academia. I didn't really fancy science as a career. So the Navy kind of presented itself and said, this is what we can offer. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. So I did my officer training in Dartmouth at Britannia Royal Naval College, which was great, real experience, to be honest. I mean, yes, it's tough, but it's also a lot of fun. You learn a huge amount about yourself, about your strengths and weaknesses, but you learn a lot about kind of how to work with different people from all backgrounds or walks of life. So yeah, it's kind of like the best management training you can get, but it's not sold. So I felt quite privileged to be able to do that. I then spent time I served on 3 ships, which was, I did a lot of traveling in that time. I was lucky enough to do a global deployment, which are quite rare, where you actually literally go all the way around the world, stopping at lots of different countries and sort of flying the flag and promoting British interests. So that was really fantastic. But I have to say, after doing that for a number of years, I did kind of miss stability. I missed being able to have a normal relationship, because I was away just all the time. So I decided to move into civilian life. And one of the things the Navy do, which is great, is that they help you transition. So they can train you in a skill, a civilian skill, and I picked accountancy. So the Navy trained me in accountancy, and that was really helpful. I didn't necessarily use that directly to start with. So as you mentioned before, most of my jobs were working with big organizations, banks, utilities, even central government. And I worked as a financial analyst, a kind of a business analyst. So all my work was around sort of looking at how processes in organizations worked, how they could be improved, and often how kind of technology could help with that. So I had this real interest in kind of up and coming technologies and how they were used in businesses to make things better and more efficient. Always with a finance twist, but nonetheless, you couldn't describe it as accountancy. It was analysis work. So the big change for me was when I worked at Sage. And I know you worked there as well. But when I worked at Sage, I just saw that the accountancy industry was stuck in the dark ages, to be quite honest with you. We mentioned it a little bit earlier on, but Sage was this very dominant brand in accountancy, and a lot of accountancy firms were just tied into just buying the software year on year, paying for the upgrades, paying for the services, and that was the only way to run a practice. And I, with my technology hat on, I just kind of thought, actually, I think there's a better way of doing this. And I was aware of brands like Xero and Free Agent coming up at the time. They were quite small at the time, but nonetheless, kind of they were knocking on the door. Sage were quite arrogant, and I have to say, kind of ignored that. And I just thought, no, I think there's a better way of doing accountancy, particularly for small businesses. So small businesses often getting charged the same amount of money as larger businesses for the same service, and they don't have the money, so it seemed unfair. So I kind of parked that idea for a few years, and I had the opportunity to go and work at Atom Bank, which was an app-based startup bank. I was one of the first people in the door there, and that was good fun. It was a real chance to kind of be creative, and again, kind of look at how technology and finance can work for people, make life easier for people. So Atom kind of made banking accessible through an app, which really changed things and was the start of a lot of other banks doing the same kind of thing. So we saw like Monzo, Starling, all jump on that bandwagon. So I had a really good few years at Atom, but again, it got bigger, got quite corporate, and so I've always kind of got a buzz from working on things, and kind of, I suppose, climbing the mountain rather than getting to the top. So I left Atom, and that was the time for me to kind of revisit that idea I had at Sage. And this was when I got talking to Free Agent and kind of said to them, look, I think I can give small businesses a much better service at a better price by pretty much just focusing on your software to start with anyway, and having a real simple business model of using Free Agent as a core platform, bringing clients in, supporting them throughout the year, being an advisor, an accountant, a kind of a trusted partner, if you like, of their business, rather than the traditional model of a big firm with higher fees and maybe less accessibility to clients. And that's where it started. And it's been steady growth, slow and steady growth. But I'm a firm believer, slow and steady wins the race, as they say. So it's been a fantastic journey. One of the things, one of the key bits of advice I had when I started the business was actually from the guy who founded Atom. So I was talking to him one day, and he said to me, "Don't start a business to make money." And I kind of looked at him. I thought that's a strange comment coming from a banker. He said, "Don't start a business to make money." He said, "Start a business because you believe you can do something better than anyone else."
Yeah.
That's your reason for starting a business. If you believe that, and if you succeed in that, then the revenue, the money, the profit, whatever you want to call it, that will become a natural byproduct of what you do. And that always stuck with me because, as I say, it's a strange comment to come from an organization that is purely focused on money. But I thought it was very true, because whether you make cakes or you do artwork or you sell software, it doesn't matter. If you believe that what you do is the best out there and that you can do it better than the next person, and you have that will to succeed, then you will do it. You will succeed. And that's advice I would give to anyone thinking about starting a business. If you're good at something or you've got that skill, do it. There's only one sort of true point of failure, and that's not trying it in the first place.
Yeah, that's great advice. Because it's so true. Because people chasing the money, and then they get distracted or diverted away from why they originally set out to do what they do. I've seen that over the years. A lot of people that I speak to, they've lost sight of why they're doing it in the first place. And I'm doing this, like, I do one-to-one coaching whenever someone joins the Start a Week community, but start to do this 5-day focus program, and everyone I've worked with so far, that's basically where they're at. They're great at what they do, but somewhere down the line, they've started getting pulled into different directions, and other people are asking them to do things that suits them rather than the business owner. And,
that's right.
And before they know it, they're just they're not actually doing what they want to do anymore. So a key thing is getting them to think, okay, why are you doing this, and what did you set up for in the first place? What motivates and excites and inspires you? And that's the starting point for everything. People talk about Simon Sinek and start with why, and people quote that all the time without really understanding what he means. But it all boils down to that. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Why are you doing it? What motivates and inspires you? And everything should lead on from that, and the money will come. You will be able to build a business from that.
Yeah, that's it. And I think if you are just kind of focused purely on profit and trying to extracting money from the business, then you've got a higher risk of kind of burning out, because essentially any money that the business is making, you want to take for yourselves. Okay, that you might get the money from that point of view, but really the successful businesses are the ones that have a mindset of working out what needs to be done and who's best to do it. So, for example, do you need to bring people on to help you? Because if you've got a good team in place and you lead that team, then again, the business will naturally start to do well and expand, because those people are working on your services. Now, that might mean that you have to take less as an owner, but it's about thinking long term and thinking kind of wider as to where the business is going. So I'm a great fan of kind of bringing people into a business, bringing them on that journey with you. And I think the other thing is as well is just not being afraid to address strengths and weaknesses. So I know that there's some things I'm really dreadful at, So I really struggle with like marketing and creative work. So I give that to someone else to do, because otherwise I just get myself in a right kind of mess trying to think about good stories or good blogs to write, that kind of stuff. My brain is not creative in that sense, so I'm quite happy to park that and give it to someone else. So yeah, it's about outsourcing what you're not good at or what you don't like doing, focusing on what you are good at. That it may sound obvious, but lots of businesses, they don't want to do that because it means spending money. So they'll think, oh, I'll just do it myself. Accounts is a great example. Yes, you can do your accounts yourself, but is that really the best use of your time? It's probably not, and they're probably, they might be wrong. So you've got a double risk there. So yeah, if there's something that someone else can do better, then factor that into your costs. It's just a cost. So factor it in, plan for it, and pay someone else to do it rather than trying to do everything yourself just to maximize profit.
Yeah. Well, it's a reverse of what we were saying, isn't it? Bringing the experts to do your accountancy, to get on top of your numbers. If you should have some understanding, but it's better to work with someone who that's what they do day in, day out. They're the experts in that. Just like what you said there, your expertise is accountancy and financial forecasting and planning and helping owners plan for the future and understand, get on top of where things are. It's not marketing, and nor should you can give someone who specializes in marketing the tools and the assets and the information about your business, and they can work out how best to communicate that. So and you are, you're very good at communicating. You're very good at doing the videos, this interview now, but also the videos that you've done where it's just you doing a piece to camera or doing a presentation. I think you're excellent at it. You're very good at explaining sometimes complicated or boring things in an interesting way. So
there's a lot of accountancy stuff is boring, and unfortunately that tends to be the kind of the compliance stuff that you have to do. I was saying before that there's nothing more boring than going through a set of statutory accounts, because there's no pictures, there's no color, it's just numbers and text. Most people are presented with that and they have to sign it off. Do they really know what they're signing off? So I think, hopefully we found a way of kind of bringing the numbers to life a bit more and putting a bit more energy and enthusiasm into them. Because if businesses start to understand the potential that they have in their brand or their product, then it can really make that difference from just sort of being a small business ticking along to growing the brand and growing the presence, and a recipe for success, I guess.
Yeah, totally. So just looking ahead, obviously, we talked before we went live about now that there's a clear sort of roadmap for easing up on the lockdown, and the spring budget's out. I think people are feeling a lot more optimistic, and they're planning ahead, and they're starting to spend money again. Definitely, people are wanting to push on and grow their business again. But is there anything that coming up that you think people should be aware of that they might not be aware of, whether they're an established business or a new business? Putting you on the spot here, but there's the government-led stuff, but just in the calendar year, anything that you think's coming up that people should be aware of that they might not be thinking of?
Well, I think that probably the most important thing is, this is where small businesses have a real advantage, is they can react and adapt much, much more quickly than bigger businesses. So if you've got an idea for your business about, for example, a new service or going out to a different kind of market, you can make that happen really quickly. Okay, there's no red tape. You haven't got to sit through loads of meetings or presentations about how you do it, who's going to run the project, what the budget is. That doesn't exist in a small business. It's you and maybe your team. So if you've got an idea, make it happen, because small businesses are, if they can adapt and change quickly, they are at the forefront of being able to kind of tackle this new economy, whatever that looks like, this new normal that everyone talks about. They can be at the forefront of trying to win contracts, trying to provide services. And I think small businesses are about to have their time. I honestly, genuinely believe that. I think big corporate companies with thousands of people filling office blocks, they're going to really struggle to adapt to a different economy and a different way of working. But all those kind of passionate business owners, the creative businesses, the service industries, the tech businesses, all of these guys that are kind of ready to go and grab the bull by the horns, they're going to be the ones that benefit. So take some time to think about what services you offer and how you can adapt that to a new world. I think in terms of kind of you asking about sort of milestones and dates this year, my advice, and I'm going to try and do this myself as well, is really stay on top of kind of good networking opportunities. Because as people may be a bit more nervous meeting face to face or going to kind of big events, it's about looking at what's available online, joining some good local networking groups it's this sort of community over competition. Talk to other business owners, see what works for them, what hasn't worked. I talked to a lady up in Scotland who runs a similar accountancy practice. And that's been really, really helpful for me to learn about some of the things that she's done. It's not about competition because there's enough work for everybody. It's just about sharing ideas and thoughts and making that work. So I think networking is going to be really important this year. And as kind of government grants start to tail off, and if you've got staff on furlough or you've been kind of using grants, again, I'm afraid it goes back to cash flow. So make sure you factor in those reductions and when they're going to take place. Because if you've had 12 months of furlough payments, and they will stop at some point, unfortunately. So it's about knowing that and factoring that in. So keep an eye on what's going ahead in the next few months. Yeah,
amazing. No, brilliant. Well, I'm definitely I'm excited, and I mean I'm always pretty optimistic anyway. But the good weather definitely makes a difference, and I can maybe not on the same scale. I can't imagine doing it. Even if tomorrow Boris Johnson said everything's fine, COVID's gone, you can all meet up in large numbers again. I can't imagine doing an event on the scale of Newcastle Startup Week when we had 800 plus people there together. Amazing as that was, I can't imagine doing that for a long time, or I don't even think people would want to do that. But I am starting to think maybe in September, October, having some smaller events again, and alongside the online Startup Week community and everything else that I'm doing, but definitely the ability to have an all year round resource, which is what I've pivoted the Newcastle Startup Week website to be, is it's very beneficial for people, but also for me as well. I'm enjoying providing that all year round support as well. Okay, so we'll just say again, if people want to work with you, I'm sure anyone watching this would want to work with you, right? So, but if anyone does want to work with you, they could obviously connect with you through LinkedIn or Twitter, where they go to abacusjack.co.uk and read all about the great stuff that you do and how they can start working with you and get in touch with you that way. And is there anything else that you want to say before?
No, I mean, just again, thank you very much for having us on. It's been I've thoroughly enjoyed it actually. So thank you for the going easy on the questions. Nothing too difficult. It's great. And as you say, I think small businesses are absolutely primed to kind of benefit from the new world. And I genuinely, like you, I'm optimistic about this year and beyond. I think the pain has passed, and yes, it's been tough for everybody, but we'll get back to a better life, so personally and professionally. I think we've got some, as Boris says, the shoots of recovery are coming through. So yeah,
he's got a good turn of phrase, hasn't he? What was it? The crocus of hope.
That's the one. The crocus of hope. Yeah, that's the one.
I know I've quoted him quite a bit since he said that, with a bit of a smile on my face. But yeah, he's funny. But okay, great. We'll end it there. Thank you very much, Andy. All right.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks.
Have a great day.
Cheers.